Ifa is the brand new 4-star that arrived with this patch of Genshin Impact, and unfortunately he is yet another example of an undertuned kit for a very interesting and creative and anticipated design. Even more unfortunately, it seems to be a trend, as Dahlia's kit now has very accurate pre-release predictions, and he is not looking good either. So in this video, we're going to go over all my findings from my Ifa testing, and we're going to go over the disappointment that is Dahlia's kit. And finally, talk about the larger trend that might be looming in Genshin Impact. Do they hate men? Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. First things first, I ended up with just a Constellation 0 Ifa. I won my Escoffier 50-50, and I actually had to wish extra times to even get one copy of him. I got 4 copies of Layla, 2 copies of Rororon, and not a single copy of Ifa until I wished afterwards. So C0 Ifa is what we tested. He doesn't have like that powerful of constellations, so I didn't feel baited to get any further, and his teams are so underpowered I wasn't even able to play him on floor 12. I used this team on floor 11, but I guess the idea is that he is an electrocharge character, and people do have issues with floor 11 from time to time, so I figured I would give this team a try and compare Ifa to a Sucrose, who maybe you already have built and already have leveled. You're welcome to check out my actual runs. I'll link them at the end of the video. Not linked, but I'll have them playing towards the end of the video the same way I did for Escoffier, so you can check out my live testing and first impressions of Ifa. He does get better, I will say, with his constellations. Like, none of them are super crazy, but by the time you do get to C6, it is a noticeable improvement. And so for those of you that are Ifa enjoyers, it does, what I'm about to say, make it a little bit more palatable, because what I found from my testing was that Sucrose outperformed Ifa on this team. So I used Sucrose, Farina, Yelan, Rororon. Ifa took a bit longer than 1:30 to clear the final stage of floor 11. Sucrose took a bit under, and then I had to try Mizuki as well, and Mizuki actually cleared the fastest out of all of them, although I did have to switch Yelan for Yoimiya. When I used Yoimiya's burst, this team cleared the fastest by far, because Yoimiya's burst AoE is quite good, and being able to hit multiple enemies like that is very good. Yelan's actually not so good for this team overall because she's so single target. It's good for sheet DPS, but not as good for AoE. Yoimiya is actually much better for this team for true AoE. So if you have yourself a Yoimiya, make sure to use it, and that goes for any of the teams, not just Mizuki. But I also did try just Yoimiya not using her burst, pretending it didn't exist, just to simulate a bit more of a fair shot of Ifa versus Mizuki versus Sucrose, and I found that actually Mizuki and Sucrose were about exactly the same, with Ifa being just a bit of a step down. Given again that this is C0 performance, by the time you get to C6, Ifa will outperform the other 3 characters on this team by a noticeable margin, so that's nice. Unfortunately, the team just isn't like that crazy. It's not that good. Even at C6, you're gonna want to, if you're, again, like I said in the pre-release, if you're an Ifa fan, you're gonna want to get constellations on your Farina, potentially constellations on your Yelan, so that you can make this team actually clear proper content. So nothing sort of unexpected overall. Like, he is a bit more mobile, and it is fun, so he is quite enjoyable to play. He was very good in exploration. I really liked exploring with Ifa. He's basically as good as Chaska for flying around, which was awesome. That's an amazing free-to-play quality of life, and being an EM Ascension Scaler, as I predicted, he's a fantastic new player character, as EM stuff just does so well in the early game. So if you're a new player and you want to build yourself an Ifa, I highly recommend it. It's a great idea to build yourself an Ifa and start doing that swirl reaction. Really good idea. But for an endgame player, you know, these electrocharge teams are just not where it's at. We did also try and get a little creative and used him with Wanderer. He's able to replace Farina on the Wanderer team, and technically it's not so bad. In practice, I actually had a really hard time actually clearing. The quality of life is just not there. I found Farina did better. Without having Farina on Favonius, my Bennett had energy issues, my Faruzon had energy issues, so losing the Fav was really bad, and it can be fixed with better artifacts, and I did think it was pretty decent. Like, if you don't have Farina, or if you need Farina on the other side, it actually is a solid replacement But I just had mainly energy issues from losing the Fav. It's something I could have solved, but Wanderer has very little quality of life, and he was very hard to use on the second half of this Abyss. I just didn't enjoy it, so I stopped doing it after a while. But it did do like solid damage as a support. So how does this work as a support? Ifa is going to be wearing the Thrilling Tales, and he is going to be using the Scroll of the Hero Cinder City set. He basically just needs to swirl any element to give Wanderer the buff. It doesn't have to be Pyro, because that's normally what you'd be swirling, because you're using Farazan, then Bennett, then ending the rotation with Ifa, so he can pass Thrilling Tales to Wanderer. But if the enemy has an innate aura, they have some other aura on them, that's no big deal. As long as he swirls anything, because anything reacting with Animo will buff Animo. So that's a pretty cool thing, and it is a nice budget. As a little bit of a side note, just so I could get a full picture of everything, I didn't cover Wanderer in my Escoffier video, but I did test Escoffier with Wanderer to compare it versus Ifa, and I found that this was by far Wanderer's best team, personally, especially this Abyss, of course. But even when I removed Escoffier's weapon and when I removed her goblet, I still got a really excellent time. It actually cleared slightly faster than when she had her signature and when she had no goblet, which is to simulate not having the Abyss Blessing on the second side. The reason why it cleared so much faster was mainly because the freeze quality of life. That was the main reason, but also the damage was just a little bit higher. And if your Wanderer ever gets knocked around, because the damage is more spread out throughout the team, Farina's doing a lot more damage, Escoffier's doing a lot more damage. That means it doesn't rely so much on Wanderer. So if you get knocked around, you're still doing some solid damage. One thing I didn't actually do was put Farazan on VV. Maybe that's better. I didn't consider that. But anyways, regardless, it was still very good. Okay, so now I do want to do a little mini rant about Dahlia, because we have Dahlia's kit, and I will do a full video on Dahlia very soon, actually. I think maybe a Skirk Dahlia combination video. Maybe I'll do them individually just to milk more views, I guess. But Dahlia, he's basically an attack speed buffer that has a hydro shield, and that's all he does. And you know, characters like Yunjin are also attack speed buffers, but she also buffs normal attack damage, whereas Dahlia doesn't even have that. So it's pretty weird. I'm not gonna lie, Dahlia is a very weird character, and it just seems like they don't care about this character. It seems like they don't care if they have a niche, if they're gonna be good. And we're sort of, as players, content creators, we're sort of just at a loss to see what are we supposed to do with them. That's kind of like Ifa. So I am displeased. It's a very boring kit. It's a very uninspired kit. It's very useless. There's not, you know, if you know about Skirk, she has interruption resistance in her kit, so Dahlia isn't even really meant to go with Skirk properly. Buffing attack speed for her is just okay, and it's nothing really compared to the other slots that you can put in for Skirk. So the people that have been looking forward to Dahlia, it's just very disappointing. What are you supposed to do with this character? The Hydra application is not there. The damage is not there. The buffing is not there. It's just like, what the heck, bro? What the heck, bro? And it's just sort of like deja vu. It's like we just had Ifa, and Ifa is just the 5-star, like a 4-star Mizuki. That's not an insult, because Mizuki is a 3-star Mizuki. So Ifa being a 4-star Mizuki makes him better, because he is better when you have C6 Ifa. So, I mean, it's just confusing, right? It's just very confusing. And recently, like, sure, I put a Roran on the thumbnail as well, because he is the most recent male. Because it's sort of starting to feel like a targeted trend towards male characters. I don't think it is, and I'll go over why. But it's starting to feel that way, because we get a Roran, and then they're basically power crept by a Yansan in, like, the next patch. Aurora's not a bad character, especially if you happen to have Elegy. If you don't have Elegy, they're at least still not bad. They have some uses. You know, Auroran's not bad, but they're not like great. Not like Yansan is great. But Auroran is like solid. But then we get Ifa, and then we get Dahlia, and we haven't had a 5-star male since Kanich at the very beginning of Natlin. So it has us all wondering, does Genshin Impact just hate male characters? And this is really interesting, because when I actually first started becoming a content creator, it actually seemed like Genshin Impact hated female characters. So I'll show you what I mean. We go over here, I'll switch mine, and we go to the character archive. If we look at Sumeru, okay? So Sumeru so we end Inazuma with Yelan, and then Sumeru, we get Tinari, we get Sino, we get Nilou, so one female, tall female character. We get Nahida, which I understand is a female character, but I kind of, to me, like the child female characters are sort of a different category, to me anyways. We get Wanderer, we get Alhaitham, we get Dia. They, like, definitely a hot female character, but the kit was absolutely disastrous. We get Baiju, and then at the beginning of Fontaine, we get Neuvillette and Wriothesley. And so the next female character was Farina. So we had between the start of Sumeru and the Archon, so the middle of the next region, we only had one limited 5-star female character. Only one. Sure, we had a bunch of 4-stars. A bunch more 4-stars, by the way, than we've had male 4-stars recently. Males have really been less, right? Like really been a lot less. So I'll obviously concede to that, because between the same, like a similar time period between Farina and Escoffier, we have only had one male 5-star at all, and that's been Kinich. And we've only had Gaming, Sethos, Ororon, and Ifa as the other male characters. To be fair, Gaming's pretty broken, and Ororon's pretty solid. And Sethos is not awful for his time anyway. Kind of not great now, but for his time, he was not that awful. Oh, and then Linny also. So it was Wriothesley, Neuvillette, and Linny to start off Fontaine, right? 3 male characters. And so what I noticed as this trend, because we also had Baiju, and Alhaitham, and Wanderer, and Sino, and Tinari. That's a lot of 5-star male characters. And so what I notice is Genshin likes to feast or famine people who are into one gender or the other for their character. They didn't give us any females for a long time. And then I just want you to know, at the time where we were most starved for female characters, the release of Baiju, they dropped Honkai Star Rail with Zila as a limited 5-star waifu. And we hadn't had a 5-star waifu character for like a limited one since Nilou. And it had been a year or over a year. And so we were starved for a female character. And it seems to me like the Genshin does the same sort of thing with Honkai Star Rail now, where they're putting a bunch of males in Star Rail to try and make people go over to Star Rail and do the male and to enjoy the male characters there, because they're not getting any 5-star male characters in Genshin. If I were a betting man, I would guess that Nod Cry is going to have a bunch of male characters. I don't know if I would bet on this, but I feel like that there's a pretty decent chance. Maybe we will go back to more even. I hope it's not like Sumeru, where there's just like so many limited male characters, and the beginning of Fontaine with 3. There's so many limited male characters and so few limited females. I would just like to see a balance, you know, a 2-to-1 ratio, because we know most people go after the females, a 2-to-1 ratio of 2 females, 1 male, and have it be fairly consistent throughout the region so that everyone gets something here and there. But it seems like it's not like that. It seems like they like to do feast or famine. And Nod Cry, what do we have? Potentially Capitano, potentially Varka, potentially another character that was teased in something that I'm not going to talk about because it's kind of spoilers that I got spoiled, so I'm not going to talk about it. But some other male character that was teased. Feels like to me there's a bunch of male characters coming on. So does Genshin hate male characters? I don't think so. I think that they're just playing this awful game where they withhold and then put out a bunch, so you have to spend, and then withhold and then put out a bunch you have to spend. And when they withhold, it's because they want you to go try Honkai Star Rail, or they want you to go try, you know, Zenless Zone Zero or whatever. That's my theory. It could be totally wrong. I could be totally out to lunch on that. But one thing is for sure, Ifa has a very boring kit. Dahlia has a very boring kit. There is no excuse for that. Why are they doing that? Is it because they're lazy? I don't think it's a laziness issue. I think it's an actual decision. They're actively making the decision to make boring, underpowered kits. Why are they making that decision? I don't know. I'm at a loss as to why they would make boring, underpowered kits. At least make, you know, interesting underpowered kits like Fremine, I guess. I don't know if that's actually better, to be honest. But boring, underpowered 4-star kits are nothing new. We had Fremine, Kave, Lynette, right? You know, Dori, Layla Kaush, Hazo. Like, boring, underpowered kits are nothing new. It's just now we happen to be starved as well for male characters. So there's no, like, good male characters to counterbalance. Plus, we just got really solid female character 4-star in Yansan. They really haven't released that many Natlan 4-stars. Hey, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then we have Dahlia for 6. Whereas in Fontaine, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, we got 6. Oh, okay, so it's the same. Okay, never mind. Just feels like there's more. Maybe Sumeru there was more. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Barely. Only 7. So, there you go. Something to think about. And now you can check out my first impressions for Ifa and see how underwhelmed I am. Since Ifa is really bad on floor 12, we are going to test him on floor 11 and do a comparison of Sucrose and Mizuki as well. All right, this is the one that we're most interested in. One that most people have trouble with. There's so many enemies. We actually got a slightly worse time with Prototype Amber than we did before. That's funny. So, can anyone rewind? Can you rewind the VOD, or how does it work? You can't rewind if it's live. I think Sucrose is going to be faster for all of them, but we'll see. If this is like, I think it's not going to be close. Like, I think the first chamber was way faster, and I think this one's going to be way faster too. Do you watch anime? Not really. Okay, it was like a little bit close. alright. About the same. When you don't use Elon's Burst, it's about the same as Sucrose and a bit better than Ifa. If you enjoyed this video, thanks so much for watching. Please subscribe down below. We're almost at 100K, so every single one helps. And if you don't want to do that, that is totally fine. Just watching the video has been more than enough. Thanks so much. Bye for now.